Good evening. Good evening.
Good evening, sir. We'll just start. Thanks for joining.
Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Spine Wellness and Care Foundation series of webinars. Today, we are going to delve on a very important topic, do's and don'ts of safe driving. I would request that all those who are not speaking may keep their devices on mute. And we will definitely take questions. Please type them out in the chat box. And we will take the questions, if not in between, then at the end of the session per se. A brief background. It is projected that by 2030, injuries due to road traffic crashes will be the third leading cause of the global disease burden and seventh leading cause of death. One of the top 5 reasons of morbidity and mortality in the Southeast Asian countries are road traffic crashes. And they account for approximately 62% of deaths reported due to road traffic crashes, which occur in 10 countries, including India. We have a large road network in India, around 62.16 lakh kilometers, and this is one of the largest in the world. Hence, no doubt, there would be an increase in road traffic crashes and fatalities due to that. But the crash rate of 35 per 1,000 vehicles and the associated road traffic crash fatality rate in India is one of the highest in the world. India ranks first in number of persons killed across the 199 countries reported in World Road Statistics in 2018. In terms of persons killed per lakh of population, India ranks 11 amongst all countries. So these are statistics from the Ministry of Road Transport and Highways, and you can note that in the year 2019, 4,51,631 people were injured on road with 1,51,113 fatalities. That would account for 1,237 accidents and 414 accident deaths which take place on Indian roads every day. In other words, 51 accidents and 17 deaths take place every hour. If you look at the age profile of road traffic accidents, the vast majority, 70% of those afflicted are in the 18 to 45-year age group. This is tragic because this is the most young and active age group per se. And if you look at vehicle-wise road accident deaths, 38% of deaths take place in two-wheelers. Overspeeding accounts for the maximum share of road accidents and road accident deaths, up to 63 to 73%. The socio-economic cost of road accidents reported by India in 2018 was rupees 1,47,114 crores, which are equivalent to 0.77% of the nation's GDP. Thus, it is crucial to consider safe driving, whether you are a novice driver or have been driving for decades. And hence, looking at the importance of the topic, we thought about conducting this webinar on do's and don'ts of safe driving. And we are lucky to have a host of very eminent panelists. We have Dr. Matthew Verghese, who is the head of Department Orthopedics, St. Stephen's Hospital, New Delhi. He has served as director of the hospital for a large number of years. Bill Gates called him one of the 5 heroes saving the world who inspire him. He's an expert on injury control, epidemiology of injuries, pre-hospital care and emergency care of trauma patients. He specialized in trauma care with particular emphasis on reconstructive surgery for trauma and deformities in adult and pediatric patients. He is co-author of the book When Someone is Hurt, a first aid guide which has been translated into 5 languages, and pre-hospital trauma care systems published by the WHO. He is associate faculty at the Transport Research and Injury Prevention Program, a WHO collaborating center at the Indian Institute of Technology, Delhi. He has received various awards, amongst which are Spinal Cord Society Lifetime Achievement Award, a Distinguished Teacher Award by the National Board of Examinations, National Award for Excellence in Medicine by T.P. Jhunjhunwala Foundation, Distinguished Alumnus Award of MAMSI, and Gildal Memorial Lecture by the Danish Orthopedic Society. We also have with us Dr. Hanif Qureshi, IPS, the Commissioner of Police Panchkula, has been Inspector General of Police Law and Order, Commissioner of Police Faridabad, CEO Haryana Waqf Board, Ministry of Home Haryana. He is a BTech, MTech, MBA and PhD from USA. He has published more than 29 articles in international journals. He won the Honorable Paper Award for research on financial frauds at the Midwest Criminal Justice Conference in Chicago, and is the chairman of drafting committee for police training syllabus. He has various memberships, including American Society of Criminology, Academy of Criminal Justice Sciences, Midwestern Criminal Justice Association, and Indian Society for Technical Education. Then we have Dr. Komal Kamra, an alumnus of University of Delhi, where she did her studies in zoology and research in microbiology, taught for 44 plus years in SGTB Khalsa College until her retirement around 2 years ago as associate professor of zoology. She has several publications in peer-reviewed journals and chapters in books, presentations at conferences, and supervision of PhD students. She has been involved in the organization of 3 international seminal activities. 39 years on her feet and the latter 27 years on a wheelchair post a spinal cord injury, Komal Kamra chose to continue her academic career, but added a strong social element to her life. Despite her wheelchair, she loves to travel, make friends, and live life queen size. Her social commitments: a peer counselor at Indian Spinal Injury Center, member Spinal Cord Society and Spinal Cord Society Consumer Committee, founder, member Ekatvam, a self-group of for epilepsy, secretary and founder member, the Spinal Foundation, and a national awardee in 2004. Komal Kamra networks at the grassroots as well as with the government. Then we have Mr. Harman Singh Sidhu, who's the president of Arrive Safe, with more than 15 years of experience, survived a fall of about 50 feet after he met with a road accident in 1996, published more than 10 articles on road safety, has various honors and awards, including Rotary Shreyas Award 2020, Prince Michael International Road Safety Award 2017, Volvo Sustainable Mobility Awards 2015 and 2013, and a member of Global Alliance of NGOs for Road Safety Councils of Punjab and Union Territory of Chandigarh. So we welcome all the panelists for this panel discussion, and we would start the panel discussion with the first question. What are the factors which influence safe driving? How can drivers of motorized four-wheeled vehicles keep themselves safe on roads? Is it true that drivers in the West are more disciplined than Indian drivers? And we will request Dr. Matthew Verghese to first give his thoughts, and we will request him mainly to talk about the safe system approach and automation within vehicles. So over to you, Dr. Matthew Verghese.
Thank you very much, Dr. Chabra. And thank you, all the panelists, and for this opportunity that I have. At the outset, I must say, I'll answer the second part of the question, whether the drivers in the West are more disciplined than Indian drivers. It's an important point, because quite often we tend to self-flagellate. वो हमारे यहाँ डिसिप्लिन नहीं है, वो हमारे यहाँ ध्यान से नहीं चलाते हैं, हमारे यहाँ रोड सेफ्टी का कोई कंसेप्ट ही नहीं है. Please, we have to remember the Western high economic developed, I don't like to use the word developed and developing and underdeveloped, because the tribal in the forest has the lowest carbon footprint. So it's important that we recognize, probably in terms of sustainability of the planet, tribal is the most evolved. So to call them underdeveloped is definitely a contradiction in today's times, when we realize all the impact of fossil fuel on the environment and the global damage that it has done to our planet. It's important to understand this. So the white man or the black man or the brown man or the yellow man, where you want to call, they are all human beings. We all have the same red colored blood, and we all have the same mind within our brains functioning. We may be culturally different, but our thinking processes, our ways of doing shortcuts are the same, and we are the same on the roads. The difference is what we are going through today, the US and Europe went through till the 70s. Till the 70s, they did the same campaigns as we are doing today. Safe driving, licensing, teaching drivers to drive, teaching children to be safe on the roads, teaching in the hope that people will be disciplined on the roads and will be safe on the road. Nothing changed. If you look up the ad campaigns in the US and Europe on 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, nothing changed over these years, but the ads were very similar to the ads that we have now. The campaigns were similar to the campaign that we have now, until they realized the only thing that can make a difference is having the environment of roads compelling the drivers to drive safely. So it's safe by design, not by individual discipline and behavior. Design the roads in such a way that they are forced to be safe. For example, I'll give you a classic example. You have red lights on these busy crossings. Red lights controlling the traffic. Daytime, there is a policeman at the corner and the enforcement is good. It's all good, hunky-dory. They see there is no policeman. Every day I see them jumping across. Every day. Why? Not because he's any more indisciplined than the other person, because human beings optimize the risk for any action that they do, and based on this optimization, they take a calculated risk and think that jumping the red light will get them faster to the child's school, so the teacher doesn't scold them. Or he's going for an evening party, his girlfriend is waiting, he doesn't want to upset the girlfriend. So whatever be the reason, he jumps the red light. Whereas if people in the West were not jumping red lights, in US and Europe, they would not have speed cameras. If they were more disciplined, why would they have speed cameras? They also have speed cameras. They also have police enforcement, which means discipline. It's nothing to do with discipline. It's enforcing and also making it safer. So the same red light at night, because you don't have that many policemen, and it's good that we don't have that many. It's not good to have a police state. With due respect to our friend in uniform, it is not good to have a police state. It's good to have trusting people in a trusting society. So you have that person in night, again jumping the red light, or there is just a blinker. So what they have found is, in crossings where they have high crashes in Europe and in US, both ways, they have come about roundabouts. They found that roundabouts are far safer. And there is a special design of roundabouts, where even if you have a lighted red light on roundabouts also, lighted red light controlled roundabouts are also there in Europe. So the important thing is, even if somebody jumps that red light at that crossing, you are forced to slow down because there is a roundabout. And the design of the roundabout is not a hard, high elevated roundabout. No, it's a sloping roundabout. The concept is forgiving environment, which even if you make a mistake, you don't want that person to have a serious injury. So the whole concept of a safe systems approach is create the environment, create the system in such a way that you're compelled to drive safely, you're compelled to do things in a manner that reduces speed, that the roundabout forces you to slow down even if you jump the red light at that roundabout. So it forces you to red down, it forces you to behave normally. So discipline by system and environment modification rather than by education.
Thank you, Dr. Matthew Burgess. Would you also want to add on how vehicle safety features have made it more safe for drivers on the roads?
So the whole concept of active safety and passive safety. So when you have a evolving society that is getting, the transportation, motorization evolving, we are an evolving society as far as motorization is concerned, compared to the US, where you have almost 95% of people within cars. In India, the number of people within cars is probably about 11-12%, not more. Not more. So the motorization is just evolving. Everybody in India had a car, nothing would move, and that will be very safe. The mobility issue, if it is slow, it is safe because it's a speed that kills. Unsafe at all speeds is what Ralph Nader said, unsafe at all speeds. So it's important for us to recognize this concept. So, but if you make wider roads, even if you're careful, you're likely to kill yourself. So you have to have automatic safety within the car. So seat belts, active, you have to do an active putting on the seat belt. Helmets, you have to put an active helmet. So those are active safety measures. Whereas airbag is an automatic safety measure. Crumple zone in the front of the car, that is an automatic measure. It's designed like that. People used to say Maruti nahi gaadi aayi hai, wo jo hai crush ho jati hai. It is designed like that, whereas the passenger seat is a non-crushable space, so that even if the engine and vehicle is damaged, the human being inside is not damaged. So these are vehicle safety measures. So they say, for example, Princess Diana, all the three people that were not wearing a seatbelt were killed. Whereas the one who was wearing a seatbelt, the driver was safe. He was wearing a seatbelt. Others were not wearing a seatbelt. So high speed, even if you're making a mistake, you will survive. So automatic safety measures. Now they are coming out with alcohol. Drunken driving is a major problem. So you have alcohol. So if you want to start the engine, you have to blow into that thing, which will start only if it senses there is no alcohol in your breath. So alcohol cars, automatic braking system, anti-lock braking system. So those are issues which are automatically, now they have pedestrian recognizing software within the front of the car. These are automations that are happening exactly as in a Tesla car. Everybody knows about Elon Musk now. He's famous because he started with this whole concept of automated driverless cars. And that is possible only because of artificial intelligence and also because of LiDAR and other technologies that allows you to have recognition of a pedestrian on the street. So if you recognize early, then you're safer early. So it's creating safe cars which automatically protect.
Thank you, Dr. Matthew Burgess. Now we'll come to Dr. Komal Kamra. Dr. Komal Kamra, could you enumerate the behavioral factors which influence safe driving?
Yeah, thank you. What's important in the first two segments of the question, an overarching statement that I would wish to make is follow traffic rules, but also be prepared to prevent getting affected by people who don't follow them. I'm on a wheelchair as someone else did not follow those rules. So be psychologically alert on roads, keep calm, be well rested in body and mind, be focused on driving, comfortably seated and belted. And here I would also say, talking about the people with spinal cord injuries who are driving today, they should be comfortable and they should have all their gadgets well in place. Look out for cautionary billboards and signages. Be well aware of the route even before departure, so you do your homework well. The route, the rules of the, you might just have hit a one-way traffic somewhere, or you might be getting onto a highway somewhere. So these are things that you should be careful about even before you start. And the last point, be very, very careful about the time that you will take to reach your destination. If it's 40 minutes, keep 1 hour to yourself so that you are comfortable and you're not rushing through. And for the last part, Dr. Varghese has already said a lot, but humans are humans anywhere. There will be cautionary drivers here in India and abroad, and there'll be careless ones anywhere. That's what I have to say.
Thank you, Dr. Komal Kamra. I think a very important message that you gave. You are on a wheelchair because somebody else was not following traffic rules. So it's not only for your safety, it's for the safety of others. It's for your loved ones, it's for your family that you need to follow the safety rules, and that would keep everyone safe. Now, let's come to Mr. Harman Singh Sidhu. He had filed a petition in the name of his NGO Arrive Safe in the Punjab and Haryana High Court, seeking a ban on sale of liquor along state and national highways. The High Court agreed with his contention and prohibited the sale of liquor along highways. So that was a big achievement. Mr. Harman Sidhu, could you share your experiences and what got you to launch this initiative for the safety of others?
Very good evening to all the panelists and all the listeners. As Dr. Matthews just said, that we need to have safe system approach. So probably this is one small segment of the bigger chain of safe system approach. So we filed this petition way back in 2012. So more than a decade has gone. And unfortunately, I'm intentionally using the word unfortunate, that the things are back where they were 10 years back, because most of the liquor vends, they are back again on the edge of the highway. Just because the way the system, or I would say the authorities, have intentionally misinterpreted the law and the rules. So I would just in brief explain as how this unsafe by design is being done. So as per the as per the Control of National Highway Land and Traffic Act, every business that has to operate on the highways has to have one safety access to the main road, and which is approved by the authorities, let it be the PWD or the National Highway Authority of India and any other agency. So in 2012, when I was just traveling on the road, I just vaguely noticed that there are way too many of these liquor shops on the highways. So I filed an RTI with the National Highway Authority of India and one of their project director offices in Ambala, where we got the information that on a stretch of 291 kilometers of National Highway 1, which is now NH44, from Panipat in Haryana to Jalandhar in Punjab, there were 185 liquor shops. So you average it out. So it becomes approximately one liquor shop every 1.5 kilometers. So our national speed limit is 90 kilometers per hour. So in every 1 minute, we pass 1.5 kilometer. So it's very simple. One liquor vent every minute. So if you're traveling for, let's say, 300 kilometers, so every 1 minute, if we have 4 or 5 people sitting in the car around this time, so somebody would definitely feel like, and he would most likely request the others to stop over. So that was the scenario with which we reached the High Court, which ordered in 2014 that the liquor shops should neither be accessible nor visible from the national and the state highways. And the unfortunate part is that within a week or so, both the states of Punjab and Haryana, they moved the Supreme Court seeking a stay on this order, and they made a point that we will remove the liquor shops from the state highways, but they may be allowed on the national highways. So in 2016, the Honorable Supreme Court ordered that the liquor vents should be moved 500 meters away from the highway. So the result of that order, that all kind of licenses were cancelled. That included hotels, bars, everything that was legitimate or illegal on the highway. As a result, 500-meter was measured in different manners, vertically towards, for example, in hotels, if the bar was on the ground floor, it was shifted to the 15th floor. So it makes 500 meters. So that was the kind of solutions that the government itself came up with. So I'm just giving this as probably a case study of the unsafe systems that we have. And then subsequently, there was a flood of cases in the court. And there was one line, 4 words, which changed the entire thing again, that the municipal limits are exempted. So as a result, so if we are talking about, let's say, Chandigarh, sorry, the smaller states of, let's say, Punjab, Haryana, or any other state. So if we start from Chandigarh to Delhi, so the municipal limits, they are nearly bordering each other. So if we are traveling on the road, they are back on the highway, because as per the law, that is municipal limit. So once again, we were in the court seeking compliance of that act, the National Highway Control and Highway Act. So naturally, the court had to order and to direct that this order has to be complied with in letter and spirit. So again, within a few days, now the state of Haryana has moved the Supreme Court and has successfully got a stay on compliance of that clause of the National Highway Act only for the liquor vents. And that case is yet to come up in the Supreme Court for hearing and is parked in the office of the registrar since 2018 because the state has yet to respond back to the petition by the which was filed interestingly by the Solicitor General of India. So that's how the current scenario is. But in spite of these 10 years, we are very hopeful that we should get a favorable order by 2024 or 2025. And once again, we will start working towards complete compliance of that order. So that's just a small case study. Thank you, sir. Over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Harman Singh Sidhu, for making a valiant fight to make the roads safer. I think we need to strive for it, and we need to leave the results on destiny, because your endeavor would definitely have brought this to the notice of the vast population of India, and it would have definitely created awareness in this regard. So thanks for this endeavor. May I request Dr. Matthew Verghese to briefly also talk about the factors like speeding. I'll go one by one. Factors which determine unsafe or safe driving. Dr. Matthew Verghese, what is the role of speeding?
Yeah, I think it's important. So now at the moment, if you're looking at occupants of vehicles, more steel you have around you, the safer you are. Less steel you have around you, less safe you are. So you're the safest in a bus, actually speaking. Uh, you're less safe in a car. You're least safe, as Dr. Chavda mentioned in the slide, 38% are motorized two-wheeler drivers. And then you have the pedestrians and the bicyclists. So depending on how much of steel you have, your vulnerability goes on increasing. Lesser the steel you have, more are your vulnerabilities going on. But given a vehicle, most people do not have a concept on speed. Say, for example, if you're driving at 40 kilometers per hour, you feel you're driving slowly. But in an urban setting with crowded traffic, it is really the normal average that comes out is less than 40 in the average. So if you look at the average speed that you have when you're going from point A to point B in a city like Delhi or Mumbai or Bangalore, you will realize your average speed comes to that much only, somewhere between 30 and 40. And that at that speed, you feel you're slow. You feel you're moving slow, but then if you have a crash happening at that speed, it is a very serious injury. We don't realize this. If a crash is at 40 kilometers per hour, do you know the impact energy that is transmitted? It's like fall from a fourth story of a building. And you can't imagine anybody surviving a fall from the fourth floor of a building. Most people do not have that level of injury only because your crash velocity, because people break, people do all kinds of things at the last minute, and your crash velocity is somewhere between 10 to 15 kilometers. Those end up with injuries, fractures, soft tissue injuries, and others. But if your crash velocity is actually 40 kilometers, we have done modeling studies in IIT. We found that there is no way a motorized two-wheeler or a bicyclist or a pedestrian can survive a crash impact velocity of 40 kilometers. No way you can survive. So that high velocity is not your speed is the major killer. So a lot of people think, I see it every day, जो कॉलोनी रोड में ही है हेलमेट की जरूरत नहीं है, कॉलोनी रोड में है सीट बेल्ट की जरूरत नहीं है, पैसेंजर सीट में है वो सीट बेल्ट की जरूरत ही नहीं है. No, that's not true. That's the biggest mistake people are making. And I see this, in fact, this can be enforced. Dr. Qureshi can look into this in his own state, see if he can encourage the passenger seat drivers, passenger seat people also to wear seat belts, especially in cars. When I go and take an Uber or a Ola, do you know, when I'm sitting at the back seat, when I look at the seat belt is there, but the hook into which it is supposed to go, that's not there, because वो अच्छे seat cover में उसको छुपा दिया है. So people think that aesthetics and beautiful car interiors are more important than safety. No, I keep telling them, no, send me a car with a seat belt at the passenger seat. Otherwise, I'm not traveling. So we have to tell this as an important point, especially if you're going on the highway. Passenger seat and driver seat belt is essential. And nowadays, again, fancy cars have fancy audios and stereos. But fancy cars, the car manufacturers also wouldn't sell with airbags and air curtains. No, they wouldn't sell like that. They come as added on for which you have to pay more. These are automatic safety measures which can protect you. And again, in cars, when you're driving at a high speed, when you're crashing, that crumple zone protects the driver and the passenger. But if you put a bull bar at a high speed, you're going to kill the person on the other side. You protect your car, but you're killing the other person. So you need to value human life. Bull bars are not allowed anywhere in the high income countries. Bull bars are the special thing. ये जो है ना आपका grill protect करेगा. No, it is not meant for protecting the grill. It is meant to kill people on the other side. So please, they should be banned. They should not be allowed. So these are things which become problematic as you go on speed. So what we recommend is for reducing speed by traffic calming measures. And what are traffic calming measures? For example, those of you who've been driving in Delhi, there was a recommendation that we should put a subway opposite the Satya Sai Mandir in Lodi Road. Okay, but have you seen there is no subway there? What have they done? They have put a cobblestone road. So however fast that person is driving is forced to slow down. By design is forced to slow down. Why? Well, lots of beggars are there. Lots of people on wheelchairs come there begging. You can't blame them. There is no income for them. What do? They need to eat. They need to survive. They also have a space in this on this planet. So that place, very nice. They have, so nobody has thought of putting a subway, because then pedestrians have to go down and up. Wheelchair bound people will have to go down and up. I am not aware of any subway in Delhi or anywhere which is wheelchair accessible. It is impossible for them, and it is impossible for them to cross. So that speed on that road in Lodi Road, it's a brilliant concept. No elevated structure, no subway, speed reduced automatically. Whether you like it or not, you have to slow down. By design, by texture of the road. It is speed control by traffic calming, by texture of the road, by texture of the surface, by using furniture on the crossings like roundabouts that are layered roundabouts, by using special, shoulders, and which automatically slow you down. So whatever you do, you reduce speed. Higher the speed, higher the mortality. More the velocity, more the energy. So this is, again, people don't understand the difference. Human interaction with energy is the only difference, that it is not a bacteria or a virus. But here the causative agent is energy, and energy transferred acutely to the human tissue. Higher the transfer of energy, greater the probability of getting killed. Higher the speed, remember, it is, those of you who've done physics, they will understand this. E is equal to half mv square, mass into square of velocity. So if it is a 60 kilogram man and is traveling at say 40 kilometers per hour, 40 square, that is 1600 times is the multiplication factor, compared to 10 kilometers per hour, which is 100 times is the multiplication factor. See the difference in energy transfer from the vehicle to the human pedestrian or a motorized two-wheeler that is crushed. So speed control by whatever you do to ensure that the person is safe, both inside and outside. One more thing I'd like to flag here, that is, we don't realize this because the forces involved are so large. We in India, I find this regularly. At least my family members have made it a rule. You will not have a child in the front seat ever. And usually parents like to have their child in their lap. Children also love to have that. So you know what will happen? You're wearing the seat belt, and if you're at a low speed, nothing will happen. But the moment your speed goes up to 40 or beyond, then what happens is your seat belt protects you, or if there is a crash, if you're not wearing a seat belt, you will crush your baby in your lap. You will be protected by the baby that is getting crushed, and you will kill the baby. So in Europe or US, if you travel, baby on board, you're not allowed to carry a child in the front seat ever. There has to be a love seat. And pediatricians in Europe and US are told that if there is a pregnant mother, she has to be counseled. As soon as the baby is born, a love seat is handed over to them from the hospital. And they have to use that to get the child to wherever they want to take it. No child is allowed on the front seat. No child allowed in the vehicle without having a love seat. So people realize it is, 40 kilometer fast nahi hai, lekin 40 kilometer crash speed is very, very killing. Remember that. Speed, unsafe at all speed is what Ralph Nader said, and I still maintain it's still the killer. It's still the killer. They have done enough studies in the US on this. When they tweak the miles per hour, 55 miles per hour, 65 miles per hour. Those states that have 55 miles per hour, their death rates and serious injury rates are lower. Those states that have 65 miles per hour speed limit, their death rates are higher. So speed kills. We need to calm speed down, whether by design or enforcement. I would rather have it by design. Why these poor, I feel sorry for this poor policeman. in this heat, 45, 49 degree, those poor people are standing on the road, inhaling all that noxious nitrous socks and everything. And we curse them saying, oh, you're corrupt. Hai. They all get branded as getting corrupt. I think I don't like that. That's not fair.
Thank you, sir. But you very rightly pointed out about the importance of reducing speed. The most important factor which affects safe driving, right? You also mentioned about the importance of using safety belts, and that also in the rear seat. And the government is soon likely to make usage of safety belts in the middle rear seats also mandatory, and also for vehicle manufacturers to provide those facilities in all vehicles per se. And you talked about children on the front seats. That's something which you can't see abroad, and you always have special car seat restraints. And for the benefit of everyone, next month on 24th of June, we are going to have a special webinar on child car seat restraints per se. Distracted driving is another factor which is very important, and drivers using mobile phones are approximately 4 times more likely to be involved in a crash than drivers not using a mobile phone. And it slows down the reaction times and makes it difficult to keep in the correct lane and to keep the correct following distances. And hand-free phones are not any safer than handheld phone sets, and texting considerably increases the risk of a crash. So again, driving defensively and not aggressively, and not being influenced by others on the road is also a very important factor in safe driving. And impaired driving is definitely to be
just to flag a point here. Impaired driving, especially when you are sleep deprived, you are likely to have impaired driving. So I make it a point. My driving timings are 2 a.m., 3 a.m., 4 a.m. in the morning. When I'm coming back from my theater, we're coming back from emergencies, it's very late or early hours of the morning, and 4 to 6 a.m. in the morning is the worst. You really feel drowsy. So if I'm feeling that bad, then I hire a cab and come. I don't drive. So in the West, there is a concept of designated driver if you're going for a party. So if you're going for a party, so they found that drowsy driving is as unsafe as drunken driving. And for both, if you feel you're drowsy, please have a cab and go. If you feel you're going to a party and you're likely to drink, there has to be one designated driver in your car who is not driving, or you go by cab. Do not drive and drink. Drink and drive it both ways. So in fact, there is an expression, particularly in marriages, karo bar hai. The bar is set up in the boot of the car when the procession is going on, karo bar. That's the expression many of the people use. They drink and some of them will go back home driving. While that is okay. The marriage party ends around 3 a.m. They'll drive back drunk. So that's the problem.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Matthew Verghese, for highlighting that point. My next question to the panel is, what can be done to support safe driving? We have talked about the factors which influence safe driving, but what can be done to support safe driving? What is the role of enforcement in preventing road traffic injuries? And what are the other strategies to encourage or influence safe driving? May I request Mr. Harman Singh Sidhu to throw some light? Komal, you'll be next, and then Dr. Matthew Verghese.
So, I personally feel that enforcement starts with us. Let it be if we are a driver or even if we are a passenger. Let's compare it to, since Dr. Saab was talking about the velocity and the scientific aspect. So if we are in the plane, we are not flying the plane, we are not pilots, we are sitting as passengers. But it is ensured that we wear seatbelt, and there is no flying object or a free object in the vehicle, in the plane's cabin. And if we are in a car or any other four-wheeler, most likely, we will have a lot of decorative stuff in the vehicle. There will be a perfume bottle or something else, besides the bags and papers, which we never ensure that they are tied up properly. So, in case of, let's say, a pothole or any heartbreaking, these things they would fly, and they would fly like anything and might hit the dashboard or even the head of the driver or any passenger, causing an injury which might further lead to increase in, the severity of the crash. So this enforcement starts with we as ourselves. And second is the enforcement, which is done by the third party. That would be the police or any other enforcement agency. That would be the transport department. And as I was just mentioning, that there was a very sad crash a couple of hours back where a truck, it fell down on a car, and two twin children, they lost their lives. And their mother and the children, three of them gone because the car is badly crushed. So this enforcement, and if I talk about Chandigarh, which is now labeled as one of the smart cities, which is a 10 by 10 kilometer square area, a very small city, but one of the, you can say, the most planned and the youngest cities in the country. There are 1,998 CCTV cameras, which have been installed under the Smart City project, out of which nearly 1,000 are just they're looking at the traffic violators on the roads. But it's been more than a month when the Honorable Home Minister of India, he came and started this system, but the number of crashes have not come down, or the fatalities have yet to come down. The nature of crashes, they're still the same. One of the reasons is that people are confused as what to do, because now they see that the cameras are there. So giving an example, this is a real thing, that if I am standing on a traffic light and there's a red light and there is an ambulance on my back, I as a driver, I would not move my vehicle because I'm afraid of the camera, because I think that I might be issued a ticket. So as a result, that ambulance is being delayed. So a few minutes or probably a few seconds can make a lot of difference to that life. So that is one thing. And second, as Dr. Chavda was saying, that hands-free or handheld phone, equally risky and dangerous. But people are again confused as, are they supposed to use that phone or the Bluetooth device which is now being provided by the car they have purchased, or not to use it at all, even if they are standing at the traffic light, because the camera is looking at them. So the entire focus has shifted away from the road to the camera. So our maximum speed limit in the city is 60, which I was against, but anyways, the administration decided it has to be 60. So people are being issued ticket even at 61 kilometers per hour. So even if, let's say, there is a rolling speed, then it's downhill. So naturally, the speed would increase by 1 or 2 kilometers per hour. So people are stressed because of there is too much of enforcement and there is lack of knowledge about it. There are many places where the zebra crossing or the other markings, they are not available or not visible. Let's imagine today's sun in the months of May, June, July, where it is hardly things are visible. So if there is no proper marking, probably the driver would not be able to see the zebra crossing or the other markings. So, but he is always vigilant about the camera or the police around. So the entire, it's unfortunate and it's creating confusion. So enforcement, yes, it is required. I'm not saying it is not required, but the first thing is that let's tell the people that okay, this is what you should be doing and what you should not be doing. So that part is still missing. I've been requesting the authorities that come and tell the people that this is what you should do in case of an ambulance, that you need to give way even if it is a red light. You need to move your vehicle a bit, so you won't be issued a ticket for that. That is just one example. So besides this, I'm also in a wheelchair. At times, if I am in a parking lot and I have to come out of the car, there's not enough space. After a long fight, we finally have those parking signs that there's a designated space for the disabled, but it is always occupied, and that's how the enforcement is lacking. And when we talk about travel, it should not be seen as a travel in a car or a four-wheeler only. This is also this wheelchair. It's a four-wheel thing. So it starts with a person on 2 feet or a person on four wheels, which is a wheelchair, to the person who is driving probably a bus. So this enforcement, let it be self-enforced or enforced by a third party, but it has to be done in a systematic manner. And we should all know about these basic things first. Enforcement comes at number 2. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Harman Singh Sidhu. Komal, would you throw some more light on this question?
I totally agree with Harman. Actually, I'm just kind of putting things in perspective once more, even if it's a repetition. I need to be careful. That's what is important. If everyone thinks that way, we will never ever need enforcement. Unfortunately, there will be people who will falter as far as road safety rules are concerned, and hence you will need to have enforcement. People often follow traffic rules to avoid being penalized. This point is being brought out by both the other panelists. Not to prevent a crash, just for not to be penalized. Traffic police is deployed for this purpose. This enforcement agency, they are people who should know the rules of the land. They should know the rules of the road. Their behavior and attitude should be friendly but firm. And very, very importantly, I think a point to be made here is that deployment and service rules should be looked into very well. If a person is at a busy intersection and has to remain only for 2 hours, please don't extend just because another person has not reported, because they need rest after that. So that is something which we overlook many times. And I think a tired policeman would do more harm than none at all. I will not talk about corruption because that's a big topic. The last part, what are the strategies to encourage or influence safe driving? Being from an education background, I think education at all levels and awareness campaigns at all levels. Awareness campaigns are reminders. Time and again, the education that you have got, awareness campaigns should be put at all levels, and they would encourage people to do safe driving. And of course, road planning is another key feature as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Komal Kamra. We'll now have Dr. Matthew Verghese throw light on this very important question. What can be done to support safe driving?
Before that, I just want to flag,
right.
You, Dr. Kamra highlighted the importance of awareness campaign. and Dr. Sidhu mentioned about the problem that people are facing, that, the too much of enforcement or not. I think this is where you need awareness campaigns, maximum awareness campaigns, when you changing your enforcement from one rule to another rule. That's when, don't do it without, and suddenly overnight you impose it, then people have chaos among them. Awareness campaigns and education are effective only when you give sufficient time and sufficient space for people to understand, allow the message to sink in, and then you enforce it. Penalties, I'm not worried about. The corruption part, I'm not worried about, because nobody likes to be stopped even for a 50 rupee bribe that the policeman might be demanding. Nobody wants to do that interaction. So I'm not worried about. If it can make a person safe, I'm happy that policeman is stopping him, and I'm happy that I'm not encouraging corruption. I'm only saying that stopping by the policeman is a safety measure, that he's enforcing that rule that necessitates safety for everyone. So that's an important message that we have to have. But in education, remember one thing, internationally, and this was very clearly shown by Stina Sandel in the 70s in Sweden. She did a study. Children under 8 should not be educated to cross or be on the road independently. Never do that, because children under 8, their brains cannot judge acceleration and speeds, and they cannot judge vehicles arriving on one. They'll say, we looked left, we looked right as it was told to us, and then we crossed, and the bus was far away. To a child, if the vehicle is far away, but they don't realize the speed, they cannot gauge the speed. So the rule for children is always supervised if they are on the road, never unsupervised. No education for children. For this, you can sensitize them, but don't leave them on the road with just education. It doesn't work. To support safe driving, yes, enforcement has to be there for, say, for example, speed control, whether automatic by cameras, fixed cameras, or mobile cameras by policemen. Enforcement in terms of red light jumping. So we need to differentiate between what is an unsafe enforcement and what is a safe enforcement. What is an unsafe activity enforcement, which is speeding, for example, red light jumping. These are absolute no-nos. But a parking enforcement has nothing to do with safety. There has nothing to do with safety. So I don't think the policeman should be getting involved there. Other people should be getting involved there, and the whole force of police gets wasted in terms of safety there. But of course, they have their own. That's another ballgame. So you need to understand, differentiate between what is safe, which needs to be enforced, and that has to be either speed or red light jumping, two important areas which needs to be done. Lane driving is pushed by many. But remember, we have done modeling studies in IIT. Modeling studies in IIT, we have found that if we do lane driving enforcement in city like Delhi, where the traffic is heterogeneous, you have a truck, a car, a van, a bicyclist, a motorized two-wheeler, a pedestrian, and a hawker with a hawking. Now remember, they also need to have a space there. I'm not worried about them. You have to keep them safe also. He is not going into crime to do stealing from somewhere. He's actually trying to make a living. So please respect that. He's working hard, toiling hard to make a living. Respect that. He's not wanting to steal someone else's money or someone else's purses. So it's important to recognize their space. People think they're illegal, they should be penalized. I look at it other way around. They have to be protected if they are on the road. Outside, whatever you have, on the road, they have to be protected. So they all need to have space. Heterogeneous traffic cannot have lane driving. Homogeneous traffic, like in America, if you're driving on the highway, you see cars and cars and cars and cars. You don't see anything else. You don't even see motorcycles. Here, on a red light, it's full of motorcycles. And then they go in, weave in and out. So it becomes, the cars are interspersed with the matrix of motorcycles in between. So we need to respect that lane driving is not possible in busy city traffic. Lane driving is possible, maybe on a highway where you don't want motorized two-wheelers interacting with buses and trucks. So we need to understand where we waste our energy on. We put our energy where it is maximally effective. Encourage, teach policemen what is unsafe behavior, what is safe behavior, what needs to be enforced, what doesn't need to be enforced. So enforcement and education only to ensure that whatever is being enforced is known widely in the public domain, and this is why it is being enforced. Tell them why it is being enforced. Tell them how many people are killed by this. Tell them how many people are getting, injured by this. That will help them understand, and that might help them, be safer on the road.
Thank you, Dr. Matthew Varghese. You've been a great proponent of advocacy in this field. So if you were to try to influence the government into supporting safe driving, what would be your main things that you would want the government to focus on? Dr. Matthew Varghese.
I missed the last point.
Yeah, so if you were to try to influence the government on coming out with various programs for safe driving, what are the main areas you would want them to focus on?
Oh, I would, in fact, I love the Swedish whole concept of zero vision. The zero vision concept is based clearly on the understanding that human beings can make mistakes, and the human being, if he makes a mistake, you don't want him injured or dead. So it is important that human beings, whether they are driving safe or making a mistake by whatever reason, for whatever reason, we don't want them. It's like our child. Every member of the society is like our own child. If my child makes a mistake, do I want him to be beaten up to a pulp? No. Do I want him harmed? No. I want him safe, despite the fact that he's made a mistake. So every member of the society deserves to be treated like your own child and make sure that he's safe. So a safe system concept works on the assumption that everybody who is there in the street needs to be protected by system and not by behavior. And that means you create a system that is safe. So vehicles have to be actually safe inside. So cars, there is enough design within the car for protecting the car person. Crumple zones, airbags, seat belts, air curtains, automatic anti-lock brakes, automatic emergency braking system, lane change, pedestrian anticipation, all kinds of things are coming up. They're all there. But outside the car, how do you deal with these safety measures, especially the automatic safety measures, when there are lots of pedestrians? In fact, my teacher, Professor Mohan, used to say, in countries like India, there are more people outside of cars than inside of cars. So you need to make our cities people friendly and not car friendly, which means lower speeds in cities, lower speeds in urban areas, which means speed humps and roundabouts, which means that we need to have pedestrian and bicycle pathways, but no pedestrian pathway is safe here. They're all occupied by car parking. All pedestrian pathways are occupied by cars parked there because you made it a car friendly city, not a people friendly. So people are forced to walk on the road, unsafe. And again, in the systems approach, we have to make sure. So for example, those of you who've been on the road, all motorcycles today by law have to have daytime running headlights. Do you know why? That's because human eye is designed to recognize light emitters faster than light reflectors. So if you have a light on and the person, two vehicles are coming from behind and you're seeing it in your rear view panel or your front, you see if it is a reflected light, you tend to see it a fraction of a second later. If it is light emitter, you see it faster. And that fraction of a second can make a difference between crash at 40 kilometers and crash at 10 kilometers, which can be difference between life and death. That is why this is done internationally. It is now automated in the vehicle. As soon as in fact, I drive with my headlights on all the time. And whenever I'm driving, I see people doing this. And I know why they are doing that, because my headlight is on. They don't know that it is a safety feature. No car in Europe or US can be marketed without the automatic thing. In Sweden started, the ignition is on, the light comes on automatic. You can't put it off. It's a safety feature. People say, no, वहां तो 6 महीने अंधेरा रहता है. No, even in daytime, 6 महीने में daylight भी रहता है. तो अगर 6 महीने daylight रहता है, 11 बजे daylight रहता है. So it is safer if the headlight is on. So these are automatic safety systems that you have to create, and where you find crashes more, reduce the speed. Where you find, so for example, near ISBT, one of the highest, they call it a black spot. You take care of one black spot, it moves to another spot. So you have to analyze why the black spot is there. You have to analyze why people are dying there, why people are getting injured there. For example, that road, Lodi road that I quoting about, the cobblestone road that is there. If you think people are moving fast, despite your speed cameras, despite your enforcement, change the texture of the road, make it slower. Put a speed hump there, make it slower, force them to be slow. So that's what is important, making it slow. And if your red light jumping is happening and people are dying on the night, put a small roundabout there. It doesn't have to be large roundabout, small roundabout, that will protect you. In Europe, they are increasingly putting up roundabouts, even in small. They say that road narrow, a roundabout nahi ho sakta. No, there's the design of a roundabout which is small, forces you to be slow and forces reduce speed at all cost, enforce after sufficient education, but don't penalize people. And high penalties don't work. High penalties, in fact, there was a study in Australia where they looked at after drunken driving, they put the penalty very high. You know what happened? Who are the people who are drinking there? The ones who are coming from indigenous populations, very poor people. Drinking is a big problem there. So they drink and drive. They can't pay the fee, the penalty that they imposed. They've ended up in jail. And in the jail, they interact with hard criminals, hard drug pushers, and they come out as hardened criminals. We don't want that. We want our societies to be safe from criminals. That's the only way we can protect them. So we need to look at putting penalties very high doesn't work. Even that brief interaction with the policeman should reduce your chance of being careless on the road next time. So safe system by policy, not by behavior.
Thank you, sir. The resolution 60/5 of the United Nations General Assembly's 60th session motivated member states to establish a lead agency on road safety on national level to develop a national action plan to reduce road traffic injuries by passing and enforcing legislation, conducting necessary awareness raising campaigns, and putting in place appropriate methods to monitor and evaluate interventions that are implemented. The Indian government has been trying to put more and more focus in this regard. There are acts and rules which are being administered in the road transport wing. We have the Motor Vehicles Act, we have other acts per se. The government is also trying to build up a road safety information database. They're trying to ensure safer road infrastructure. But various societies in 2018 got together to try to look into how we can strengthen these initiatives and the recommendations which could be done, which could be given to the Indian government. This was held under the aegis of the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare and the Directorate General of Health Services, and various national and international societies participated in it. So we came out with various overarching recommendations. Dr. Matthew Verghese was also a part of it. And It was highlighted that since injury is a major public health problem, there should be a national injury prevention and control program. This requires an integrated multi-sectoral approach at the center and state level. Therefore, a nodal agency with appropriate authority and budget is essential. There is an urgent need for strengthening of the national injury surveillance system. Safe system approach, as Dr. Matthew Varghese repeatedly pointed out, is the recommended approach. The key to the success of prevention program would be resourcing and enforcement of legislation in combination with education, training, and capacity building. Prevention efforts should prioritize the vulnerable population in every sector. Injury prevention and management should be included in the curriculum of all relevant educational programs at various levels. Pre-hospital and emergency care should be strengthened, and there should be a comprehensive national campaign on advocacy on injury prevention, including an injury prevention week. There is an urgent need for capacity building as well as allocation of funds and resources for research in injury prevention. And you'll be happy to know that for the first time last year, we had an injury prevention week under the aegis of the Directorate General of Health Services, and various societies participated and had week-long activities. There's also an injury prevention program which is now being worked upon by the Directorate General of Health Services. So we have plenty happening within the country. So I think we have plenty to look forward to, and we would have a lot of initiatives being taken by the government in this regard. Now, coming quickly, we have talked about the vulnerable population, and we know that the bicycles, two-wheelers, auto rickshaws, all of them are vulnerable also to have to suffer road traffic crashes per se. So my next question to the panel would be, let's have quick answers. How could drivers of motorized two-wheelers and non-motorized vehicles, including bicycles, as well as wheelchair users, we have two panelists on wheelchairs, keep themselves safe on Indian roads? Some of this has been talked about. I would request the panelists to highlight on the other aspects per se. Could we start with Dr. Komal Kamra first?
Yeah, I think road planning is the key. That has already been said. Separate lanes, intersections, merging traffic. But as of now, we don't have them yet. So in the present state, I think this community, the motorized two-wheelers and the non-motorized vehicles, bicycles, wheelchair users like me, they're the most vulnerable after pedestrians. If I'm using a two-wheeler or a bicycle or a wheelchair on Indian roads as on date, I just have to be extra careful. Many two-wheelers and bicycle riders often carry more passengers and or luggage disproportionate to the vehicle, risking themselves and others. This must be addressed immediately. For wheelchair users, I would suggest having a person behind you. It's always better. I've also done something which should not be done by the rules of the law. I do wrong side wheeling on a road so that I can see the traffic coming from the front. And in fact, many times I can look into the eyes of a DTC bus driver and say, here I am, please, can you be a little more careful? Then somebody coming from behind me and wishing away, and I'm thrown somewhere else. So I've done this all the time on Delhi roads. And I'm not apologetic about it. Thank you.
That's also documented, Komal, as you can see on the screen here. Face oncoming traffic when driving on the road for wheelchair users. So you have plenty of tips available. This again is from Braze Mobility per se, but tips for wheelchair users on how to be safe on the roads. Mr. Haman Singh Sudhu, do you have anything to add on these aspects?
Yes, like I completely agree with Dr. Kamra on this, that I also been on the other side, so we can have a direct eye contact, or we can just, signal at times. The road condition is such that we have to move the wheelchair towards the inner side of the road. And it is not just the wheelchair users. It could be a senior citizen or anybody who is actually pushed onto the road to walk. Again, like I'll give you the reference example of Chandigarh. Why I repeatedly talk about Chandigarh is because this still is the best of both worlds, right? Our country and the so-called developed part of the world. Because other cities, at times it is said that it was planned and designed long back, so things cannot be done now. So if we talk about the encroachment of the pedestrian space, or where the wheelchair users have to be, so the bigger issue now is not encroachment by somebody selling samosas or something, it's by parking of cars. A house sold with, let's say, 2 persons staying or 3 persons staying are having 4 or 5 cars because some have, let's say, a Thar Jeep for just Sunday off-roading, and it is occupying the important space for the other 6 days. And we have no arrangements for that. So I've just shared a link, which I have mentioned as a short horror story. I had gone to the bank day before yesterday, and a senior citizen, he was walking in front of me, and it just made a small video of that gentleman. So on one hand, there were vehicles traveling, and we had to be in the same direction. And on the other hand, there were cars parked. So he and me, both of us, we were in that space where, in any condition, let it be a non-motorized, let's say a rickshaw coming and hitting us, it would have been done. He was also compromised. He had a deformity in his leg. So that's something which needs to be taken care of in the urban environment. And for the two-wheeler riders, especially on the motorized two-wheelers, we normally see that, due to any reason, we have a kid who's sitting on the tank of the motorcycle or on the backside. Let it be like a child coming back from the school. We never realize when the child would probably doze off. Or in case of heartbreaking, the child might, by the force, go out of the handlebar. We need to have some kind of a system where safety harness is there. And in that case, if somebody is forced to take the child along, we need to ensure, if that is the case, we need to ride even at a slower or a safer speed. And just to add to this, the biggest issue that for a two-wheeler which is being seen now is the home delivery boys. Let it be the food or any other stuff, like you would see somebody carrying a bag which is more than a quintal heavy because they are delivering stuff to people's homes. And while carrying that heavy weight along, they're also looking at their mobile because they have to look for the location also. So that is extremely dangerous. And it is somehow seen as a legal activity as of now. So in no city or no rule, it has been specified that a commercial vehicle should carry this stuff. So this has to be seen also. Like I'll give you the example of my home state of Punjab. You might have probably read somewhere that there was a lot of hue and cry about a vehicle called Jugaad. Like earlier, the government banned it. Then within a few days, they were allowed. So Jugaad is nothing but like a motorcycle engine on and with a cabin on the back. So can you believe it? Material up to 1 ton being carried on it. So they just break down on the highway or any other place. They're illegal vehicles. So these are the various segments of the vehicles that need to be taken care of. let it be by enforcement or by education, whatever manner it has to be done. And one last thing, if we talk about what the government needs to do, as Dr. Chabra, you asked, and Dr. Matthews, so it is basically they need to act on the acts that are already in place in real sincere term. Before, like, we should not say that, there is a vacuum, we'll come up with a new law and then we'll quickly force it. So even the laws and the rules which are already in place, they are not totally flawed. They have something in it, and we should seriously focus on them and implement them. Because I'm again giving the example of the liquor bans. If we talk about the existing laws, they cannot exist on the edge of the highway. I have, just for to make videos or photographs, believe it, many of them are drive-through shops. You can just extend your arm and catch a bottle of beer. So neither the salesman moves from his seat, nor do I. So it's as easy as that. So it's the existing law, existing rule, which is not being implemented. So that's how I see these things.
Thank you, Dr. Matthew Varghese.
Yeah.
How could drivers of motorized
Well, they are the
two-wheelers
most
and
vulnerable.
non-motorized vehicles, including bicycles, as well as bicycles, keep themselves safe on the Indian roads?
First of all, I have to highlight the issue that motorized two-wheelers are now the cheapest mode of travel. They are cheaper than public transport. So it is common in the city of Delhi to see your buses, which are operated, having empty seats, but roads are full of motorized two-wheelers. That's because your per kilometer travel cost has become cheaper by motorized two-wheelers because those engines are more efficient. So if people are going to motorized two-wheeler, it is because it is more cost efficient. One has to accept that. Unless your public transport is subsidized and is made cheaper, people will not move from the motorcycles to the public transport. Internationally, people talk about public transport. It's not going to happen. As long as the motorized two-wheelers travel is cheaper, they will remain on that. If they remain on that, you have to make sure they are safer. How do you make sure they are safer? One, helmets. Helmets protect from death by 40%. They protect from serious head injuries by 70%. So helmet, both for the rider and the pillion rider, both, it's extremely important to have helmets. Daytime running lights, even in the old vehicles, it is possible. And reflectors, front, side, and back, you have to have. If police were, and this is true for the bicyclists too, we have not pushed hard for the helmets for the bicyclists because that is difficult to enforce. Number one, for various reasons. But what is easy for the police to do is, for example, I would like, say, Punjab police or Haryana police or Delhi police to have a CSR where they are putting reflectors at every red light. These bicyclists are stopping. They can put sticker of red light at the red lights on the handlebars, front and back, and on the sides. It's such a simple thing. And if it improves, they think it is a large vehicle. They don't realize that they merge within the traffic space. So it's important to have reflectors on these vehicles, whether it is a rickshaw wala or a ready wala or a bicyclist or a motorized two-wheeler. Invariably, they might have a light which is not working, but if they have a reflector, they are visible from afar. In fact, Dr. Kamra talked about riding a wheelchair against the traffic. That's the safest way. Why? Because probably when human eye-to-eye contact is there, they intuitively slow down their speeds. It is recommended. People mistake this. Pedestrians in India are told you have to stay on the left. No. Pedestrians have to walk facing the traffic, not with the traffic. It has to be facing the traffic always. People don't understand. People are taught wrongly to walk with the traffic. That walking on the left is for traffic. Walking on the right is for the pedestrians and people like on the wheelchair with Dr. Kamra. So you have to understand that. And that wheelchair has to be visible. Wearing the policemen, the municipal workers that are there now, they all been given the special jackets. Okay, it's in our weather, it is difficult to wear that kind of a jacket. When I went to Sweden for a traffic safety workshop, I was given an armband. No, the moment you're on the street in the night, you have to have an armband, which is a reflector band, which works very well. I carried it, I still carry it in my bag whenever I'm traveling. Because unfamiliar street, I always have an armband at night because I may need to be visible more to the other. So walk facing the traffic if you're a pedestrian, wear a reflective band or a strap or even a belt. And in fact, even the shoes that are coming, it's why only those fancy shoes that you spend money on. They also have those reflector lights. Your backpacks have reflector lights. Children with backpacks have reflector strips on them. These are easily doable. Police can enforce it. The policeman can stick it. They can say it's a friendly neighborhood policeman putting a reflector strip on the bicyclists, on the motorcyclists, and giving armbands which are reflector strips to them. It can be a CSR activity. Why not? And if you have to enforce red light laws. If you have to enforce helmet laws. Those are the things. The act is already there. You can enforce it and make sure people are safer by doing that. And walk facing the traffic, not with the traffic. That is the recommendation for pedestrians. And please, for heaven's sake, keep the pedestrian pathway safe and even. Do you know, if you have these bullock carts riding, do you know where the bullock carts are usually on the street? They're usually on the middle of the street. Do you know why? You know why they're on the middle of the street? The middle of the street is the smoothest part of the road. It is the smoothest part of the road. That is why they stick there. So if Dr. Kamra has to ride on the periphery, that's not the smoothest part. She has to negotiate all kinds of obstacles. Keep your pedestrian path smooth and safe and lighted. Lighting is in the middle of the road. Cars have powerful projector lights now. Who needs the light? It's a pedestrian. Who needs the light? Who's a bicyclist? Who needs the light? It's the wheelchair occupant. But we've neglected that. Light is not on the periphery. Light is in the center where you already, so you're giving more to somebody who already has. You get the pedestrian to go up or down, and the car fellow who just has to push 2 millimeters more to accelerate from 40 to 60, you make it smooth for him and comfortable. Don't worry, your block width has to be small. You reduce speeds within the city by having smaller block widths. In fact, most people planning of cities should read the Jane Jacobs book, The Death and Life of Great American Cities. It's a fascinating book to read. You will understand how New York was such an unsafe city. They are trying to make it safe by different methods. So we need to understand its design of cities, planning of cities that makes them unsafe. For women, unsafe from crime, unsafe from chain snatching. All that can be taken care of by reducing speed. Because a motorcycle chain snatcher can rush away in a motorcycle by snatching because you're allowing him to drive at a speed. That speed is encouraged. So it's a vehicle-friendly street. Make it people-friendly.
Thank you, Dr. Matthew Varghese. We have talked about how pedestrians can keep themselves safe. And these are a vulnerable population again, and we need to focus on to that. And they were very.
In fact, Dr. Chabra, yeah. I was reviewing a paper yesterday only, and the concept is changed from vulnerable people to vulnerable users to invulnerable environments. So invulnerable, the environment is vulnerable to the people. So like they say, disability is contextual. If you make the place inaccessible to the disabled, you are more disabled. So you need to make the environment less vulnerable. So invulnerable, is the expression that is coming up.
Thank you. Thank you. I think we will now come to bullet points from the panelists on what individuals, and
May
what
I-
governments could do for safe driving in India. Yeah, Komal, please.
Yeah, I just wanted to make one point here about pedestrians.
Sure.
I know that uh, Dr. Varghese is talking for them, but I also want to say that many times it's our own fault. I mean, we're taking shortcuts, we are crossing roads anywhere. And when we blame others that they are hitting us, we are chatting and joyfully talking around, walking in the middle of the road. I mean, those are careless things that we do ourselves too as pedestrians. So that's the only thing that I wanted to add. Thank you.
Yeah, so a safe system approach, but we also need to follow that the safe system approach says that errors will happen, and we have to create an environment such that safety is ensured despite the errors which are there. That's what Dr. Matthew Varghese has been trying to highlight.
That's a zero vision concept.
Right.
That human beings make mistakes. So even if you make a mistake, you want him safe. That's
Right.
the idea.
So we'll come to now bullet points on what our panelists would want to suggest to individuals and to government for do's and don'ts for safe driving in India. So let's start for individuals, and let's start with Komal. So what would your bullet points be to individuals for safe driving?
One, be alert.
Right.
Just one moment. Be alert in body and mind. The second, be aware of rules and follow them. And third, be prepared that others may not do the above.
Very good. Very good. Mr. Harman Singh Sidhu, your bullet points for individuals for safe driving in India.
So, number one, don't be distracted, because when we talk about from pedestrian to a vehicle driver, because if we are talking on the phone and walking on the road, so this is a very common sight. So it's not only the pedestrian walkway, it's even if we are on the road. So we need to be alert and disciplined, and we need to ensure that we are visibly seeing the traffic and we can also hear the traffic. And remember that you are on your own, and self-discipline holds the key. That is where it starts and that's where it ends. So once we are out of our door, we have locked it, we are in a public space, we need to ensure that we ourselves are safe and we ensure that we do not land anybody else in trouble. So it's as simple as that.
Dr. Matthew Varghese, your bullet points for
And
individuals
bullet points
safe
for
driving.
car drivers and all riders of motorized vehicles: reduce speed. That's the biggest killer, number one. Number two, for car drivers, seat belts and child restraints are a must. Both driver seat and passenger seat, front and back, both. So the seat belts, child restraints, yes, and avoid drunken driving at all costs, and have the concept of designated drivers if you are going to a party or a wedding. For motorized two-wheelers, helmets, that's the most important. And also daytime running lights. Helmets not only for the rider, but also for the pillion rider, both. And visibility by reflectors. For bicyclists and not motorized traffic, better visibility, that's all that you can do, and stay safe away from highways. You have to stay away from highways and have your vehicles visible by reflectors, front, side, and back, all four sides. Large reflectors. In fact, many trucks I have seen, the rear lights and the front lights are not working. But what is visible now, this is done by many buses. They have these reflectors that are huge. So in fact, we don't know whether it is coming towards you or going away from you. So there's no way. So there could be one way where, for example, in fact, I've suggested this to one police commissioner, where if you are coming, you have two triangles pointing, the triangles pointing each other. And if you're at the back side, you have two large triangles pointing away from each other. That means the back side, is triangles point away from each other, and triangles point towards each other in the front. The lunar light is coming towards you or away from you. Large reflectors, irrespective of whether your lights are working or not, these will help you. So reflectors on all non-motorized traffic, reflectors on all motorized traffic. Should be done as CSR for bicyclists and the street hawkers, those vendor vehicles and the rickshawalas. Very important. Pedestrians walk facing traffic, never with the traffic, because the eye contact protects you. Facing traffic. Try to stay on the pedestrian pathways, but it's a hard sell because all pathways are occupied by car parks now. Children always supervised, never unsupervised on the road.
Yes, Harmanji, you wanted to.
I would just like to add to what Dr. Matthews said. So I think we talk about drunken driving, but driving under influence probably should be the better terminology we should use. It has been seen that driving using different types of drugs, it will be chemical drugs, that is on the increase. And the worst thing that we have noticed recently is that there is a medicine called Dupin, which is given by de-addiction centers. I'm forgetting the complete chemical sort name. So people are taking that medicine, and there are a lot of de-addiction centers there which are offering it all the time. It dissolves in the mouth within seconds, and it is as potent as a very strong opioid. And a lot of people are using it, consuming it, and they are still on the road. So that is equally dangerous, or probably even more dangerous. And one more thing, when we talk about the reflectors, yes, it is a must that it be a non-motorized vehicle or a motorized vehicles. Instead of doing it under CSR on traffic lights or any other place where people are moving, we have in our own capacity, we have tried it by adopting a colony or an area. Under we call it Project Jugnu. So it's a firefly which is visible. So the reason for doing that is that if in that colony there are, let's say, 2200 cycles, we can ensure that all of them are visible. So that area looks different from the other. So that's how probably we can probably improve or improvise on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Harman Singh ji. Harinath ji wanted to make a comment, a quick comment from Harinath ji.
Yes, sir. I could not listen to entire discussion. I joined in between. What I feel 2 points which come to my mind when it comes to safety of the road users is the ease with which driving license are being issued in India. One doesn't need to really have serious understanding of rules and regulations and the tracks on which the tests are conducted. Most of the cases, the tracks which are used for testing, they're really not of standards defined. And the other thing is very frequently faced wrong right turn, which is taken very casually by most of the road users. Again, that root cause could be the ease with which they are getting driving license. They are not learning the simple techniques of taking a simple right turn at the crossroads. So these are more important while talking on paper about various signals and alerts and discipline of the road users.
Thank you. Thank you. Now coming to your suggestions and bullet points for the government for promoting safe driving in India. Let's start with Komal ji again.
This is the most difficult because government means multiple agencies, but still I have 3. Well-planned roads, walkways, etc. Second, well-crafted and well-placed billboards and signages. And the third, well-trained traffic wardens with good service conditions.
Great. Harmanji?
Yes, I think I touched this point a bit in a short while earlier also. So it's basically about acting on the acts. For example, in the Motor Vehicle Act, a new clause has been added that suppose I'm the contractor or let's say a body municipal limit or any other body. So if due to my mistake there is a road crash and a victim dies, there would be some penal action against me. So that is one area which has not been done till now. I've been trying in, let's say, the states of Punjab, Haryana, and Chandigarh, that where it has been confirmed that there was a pothole or due to any other road condition, victim died or got injured. So a ticket has not been issued. There is no action which has been taken against the violator, even though it is now in the amended act. So it's basically that we need to act on the rules of the acts that we have formed. So that is number one. And secondly, it is an evolving process. We need to keep adding more value and more teeth to it. But it should not be that today I am in the seat as the IAS officer or the IPS officer. I take one thing seriously and I ignore the other one. And tomorrow my seat is taken by somebody else. And he or she thinks that point number two was more important than point number one. So we should not do it like that. It should be consistent and same.
Thank you. And Komalji, you mentioned about the need for an integrated multi-sectoral approach, both at the center and state level. That's important. The government needs to do that, appointing a nodal agency with appropriate authority and budget. So that is very important. Dr. Matthew Varghese, sir.
Yeah, thank you so much for this opportunity. I'll take on from where you left. Sorry, the light has gone out here. So it's I'm in darkness.
No issues.
But the most important thing is to recognize that road safety is not a common sense science. It is a serious, research-based, evidence-based, scientific science. It is not a common sense science. So what Harman Sidhu mentioned about IAS or whoever comes as a policymaker, somebody thinks point one is important, somebody thinks point two important. No, that's because there is no lead agency. You need to create a lead agency with a serious budget, with a serious act that they have to do every year, analyze, find out causes, find out solutions, find out what needs to be done, find out who is getting hurt, who is not getting hurt. All that has a serious business. And that's a serious research-based activity, not a common sense activity. And that is possible only if you have a lead agency. In fact, a lead agency was proposed. The Sundar Committee report is there. It is there in the parliament and it needs to be looked at seriously again. And a lot of experts spent a lot of hours trying to do that work, and it is there and the government can look at it. Very good work. It is available. Can be looked at seriously. That's number one. But when it comes to the actual policy, you need to have, if your city is going to be smart, my smart city should be pedestrian friendly and not car friendly. And that is a futuristic city, which is sustainable, which is low carbon footprint, low emission, low NOx, low SOx. Health impact of all this is not recognized until now. The climate impact was not recognized until now. Reduce fossil fuel use by pedestrianizing, by bicycling your travel. Sorry, there's no light here. Light is gone completely. And I don't have an inverter working. Sorry. So that's number one. Pedestrian friendly, not car friendly cities. Ensure safety of pedestrians and bicyclists. Traffic calming. Reduce speed at everywhere possible. Reduce speed. Roundabout, speed humps, what have you, reduce speeds. And no roads wider than 6 lanes with 2 reserved for public transport, and strict speed control by street design, by enforcement, by educating, by whatever means you can think of. That's what is it. And encourage cheap public transport to get people off the motorcycles, cheaper than the motorcycle rider cost that is there. With last mile connectivity, the big problem with buses and all these metros People don't know this. A good pedestrian-friendly street is about 7 crores, and approximate cost in Delhi. And a per kilometer cost for an underground metro line is 300 crores. Look at the difference. And we calculated this. If you didn't have metro in Delhi, of course we have it now. If we didn't have metro and invested that money in public transport, everybody could travel free for the next 50 years in air-conditioned buses. Anyway, leave that aside. Non-motorized vehicles, accept their presence, reflectors on all sides. Do it by whatever means. That's a Project Jugnu, is a very brilliant concept. I love that. I love the title Project Jugnu. Herman, congratulations on that. The care of the injured is not come up. Why? That is the most important part. Once you've failed in all your steps, you accept failure and you have the injured and the people that are dying. Your COVID has exposed your vulnerability to the system. COVID has also added the desire of people to go alone on motorcycles. They don't want to travel in public buses because of COVID also. That has also increased the motorcycle rates, and that is also going to increase your deaths on the street. But once they get to the hospital, you have to make sure that the trauma team is there. The trauma team concept is not there in all medical colleges. It is not there in all tertiary care. Trauma team, which has a neurosurgeon, which has an anesthesiologist, which has a general surgeon, which has an orthopedic surgeon, which has a trauma nurse, which has a, all this under one roof. So once the patient, so it doesn't matter how he is carried there. Ambulances, yes, but we still don't have a universal number. Every state has its own number, whether it is 100 or whether it is 108, whether it is whatever. We don't still have, after so many years, we don't have a universal number like 911. Anywhere in the US, it is 911. We don't have that as yet. Why not? And whether whoever is transporting you, you can transport them. The Good Samaritan law is there in the Supreme Court. The law is there. The Supreme Court is encouraging the use of that. We have to make sure that once he gets to the hospital, all is done. And one drug which is making a difference in the UK, for example, all ambulances have to have tranexamic acid. Tranexamic acid has been known to reduce deaths by a significant percentage by bleeding. All those people that are bleeding to death because of a delayed care, tranexamic acid can make a difference. So people don't know about this. In fact, on the Supreme Court committee, when I recommended it there, and the question went to all the state governments, many questions asked, what is tranexamic acid? They didn't even know about tranexamic acid. It's a very old drug. It is a very cheap drug, very effective. Given within 3 hours, it reduces bleeding significantly to save lives. This is a crash 2 trial across 11 countries, and it has been shown to be helpful. So Klaus Stingwell had said in the zero vision concept, the responsibility for every death or loss of death in the road transport system rests with the design of the system. So they have to be held accountable. Design the system to be safe. Don't leave it to human behavior and human activity. Design it safe so that even if you make a mistake, you're still protected. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Matthew Varghese. That was very enlightening. And I think we have had a very interesting discussion to come to the carry-home message. Car accidents are the leading cause of death for people in both developed and developing countries. Automobile technology has improved by leaps and bounds in terms of ensuring road safety and convenience. But the grim statistics on vehicular accidents still continue to pile up. We have to practice safe driving behaviors. But as Dr. Matthew Varghese repeatedly pointed out, the safe system approach needs to be implemented to make a commitment to zero deaths. And we should also look at not driving distracted, following traffic rules, ensure prompt vehicle maintenance, and driving defensively. But the safe system approach is what is the most important aspect. So friends, this webinar was brought to you by Spine Wellness and Care Foundation in collaboration with the Spine Foundation. Spine Wellness and Care Foundation is a charitable non-governmental organization established for improving the wellness of people with spinal ailments in India. We reach and serve persons affected with spine-related ailments medically and socially to help them lead better lives. And our main objective is to provide medical, rehabilitation, vocational, recreational, and social support for persons affected with spine and related ailments. We can be reached on various email, website, and other channels, social media channels. As I mentioned, this was held in collaboration with the Spinal Foundation, which was set up in 2014 as a pan-India umbrella organization to partner all individuals and organizations which have been working regionally in the spinal cord injury space, inclusively or exclusively, with the motto of reaching out to all persons across India and help them live well with spinal cord injury. The Spine Foundation partners with various organizations in most of its endeavors, as in this endeavor, and they can be also reached on the website, on the email. And friends, would want to acknowledge that the Hindi translation in the chat box that you see has been brought about by very active contribution by Shubham Vare, Manisha Ranka, Priya Sharma, and Parvati Kairi. So thanks to them for the Hindi translation, which will help us reach out to a lot more people who are more well-versed with Hindi per se. Friends, the next webinar on 24th June, 7 p.m. will be on child car seat restraints. And we have the opportunity to benefit from the experience in US in this regard, where Ms. Amanda Jackson, Regional Program Manager, the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, and Ms. Laura Dunn, Highway Safety Specialist of the same organization, will be joining us, along with Emma Harrington, Director, Injury Prevention, Shepherd Center in Atlanta, and also the father of a child injured in a road traffic crash, Mr. Pradyut Shekhar Patra, will be joining us in this regard. Friends, it is in our hands to create a better world for all who live in it. Come, let's join hands to improve spine wellness and care and to alleviate the burden of spine disease. Let's resolve today to work on preventing road traffic injuries. Thank you for your patience, and we look forward to having you with us for the subsequent webinar as well. And I would want to especially thank our panelists also. Dr. Matthew Verghese, sincere thanks. He took time out from his busy schedule, but we know that this topic is very passionate for him. He's very passionate for this and has done a lot of work in this regard. So we have benefited immensely from all your deliberations, sir. Komal Kamraji, we are partnering with the Spine Foundation, and you represent Spine Foundation in this webinar. And Harman Singh Sidhuji, thanks for all the good work that you've been doing, and we are sure you will continue to do per se. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, participants, for being with us till so late. And we look forward to having you once again on 24th of June, where we'll be talking about an area which may still be quite neglected in our part of the world, child car seat restraints. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.